Here are two cars that feature the amazing mushroom rear pivot. Take a look here. We've got this one. It once had the car catcher rear pivot, but now it's been upgraded to a mushroom pivot. And this one too. Very nice. The difference between the two cars, MS suspension chassis versus a VZ chassis with no suspension. It does have the sponge and low fricks tires on the front and sponge and super hard tires, that is, on the rear. This one just has low fricks super hard combination tires, and it's got the suspension to make up for the fact that we're not using sponge. So the rear suspension, the front suspension, all well and good. Yeah, so we're going to be testing the might of both cars on our test track today. Both of these cars have the same batteries. They have Neo-Champ batteries, and they're not juiced up by any means. They're probably already kind of discharged to about 1.26 to 1.31, 1.32 volts each. So relatively low power, but we don't need a lot of power on this particular track. We can up the power if we want, but if these cars can run with very low powered batteries and run really fast, we know we've got good cars. And then over time, we can just adjust by increasing the power, the voltage of the batteries, depending on how fast we want to go and how much we want to stay and settle and be stable on the track that we're racing on. So in the past, I used to juice up my batteries like all the way, and I would try to like go for broke on that, but that's not always the best strategy. Sometimes less is more, and sometimes you just have to know and find that sweet spot for how fast you want to go and how stable you want to be. So let's take a look at both these cars, and you'll see that they both have body dampers, and they use different kinds of front bumpers. This one's an AT front bumper. It's called a DXN style front bumper. This one is a more modern approach to it, but it doesn't have the flexi AT part of it. So there's no like pivoting on the left and right sides. By pivoting, I mean the angle of the rollers bending back like so. Great for things like digital curves and such. This one, maybe not so much, but we don't have digital curves here. But we do have this angular pivot here, just like this. This one has a double joint. This one has a single joint. I don't know if they're really called joints. I'm calling them joints at this point. The rear pivoting system, however, is basically the same on both. So in order to get this pivoting system to work with my VZ chassis, I had to actually drill into the chassis and make a semicircle so I can fit the entire thing right onto the chassis. Pretty cool. So let's run these both and we'll see which one's faster. So I have my stoppers right here, just in case. We're going to try to run 6 laps, see where they go. If one or more course out, then we'll have to do a re-race. Here we go. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one stayed on the track, the mighty VZ chassis. On this one, on one of the latter laps, ended up coursing out, unfortunately. But I think with the lower battery voltage we have now, in a re-race, we'll be able to see them both finish at the same time. But clearly, I think this one is super fast and stable, and we're just going to see who's going to finish. So let's start this again. Okay, second trial. No contest there. This one just decided to course out like almost right away. And this one, my VZ chassis, just stayed on the track. This is meant to be an MS suspension chassis killer. So the only thing I haven't tested on are like super high jumps, but I think for relatively stable tracks like this, like 3-lane, basic lane changer, this is like a very fast car. So this one here, this does stay on the track. It just needs a little bit of, I think, a little bit of love to try to get this to be a little more stable. So I might need to add a little weight to the end of this tail damper here, and it'll probably stay on the track a lot better. So let me just check something here. Does it look like it's a little loose on this? So what's going on here? No, I think it's supposed to be like that. Let me see. Yeah, let me see if this is like, no. Is this supposed to be, is this moving? Okay. Are the posts broken? I don't think so. Let's try this alone on its own and see how well this stays on the track. I would say it does fairly well until the last lane change right there, and then it just decides to course out. So yeah, maybe the batteries are still a little too shocking for it. Maybe certain things need to be tightened on here. But yeah, I've run this car successfully on this track many, many, many times, and it would not course out. So there's something a little loose about this, I think. Let me just check something here, because I think that if I tighten the spring on here, it probably would help the situation. Let's see. I also had to glue the chassis down because the person who created this chassis, it's not the most stable chassis, so I had to glue the rear part down because there was like a gap between the top part of the chassis and the bottom part, and it should have been solid throughout, but it wasn't. So yeah, I had to make it better. I might want to use a tighter spring on the whole thing. But as you see, both cars are lightning fast. Probably on this third trial, it'll stay on, now that the batteries are kind of like juiced down. There you go. And if I were to run this again, it'll probably stay on for a good long time. So maybe I need a little more brake on the rear, but yeah, and I do have some brake on the front. This one, though, doesn't have any brake on the front. It has a little 1mm strip of brake on the rear. So let's try this again. Let's try to race this again. We'll switch sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. Now let's try it again on the other side. So I started here, and this one was in lane 2, and this one won. So maybe there's a little bit of bias on which lane I start on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go. They're both super fast. So yeah, either one would be like nice contender cars for races. This one, I just have to adjust some little thing on there to make it a little bit more stable. This one is plenty stable, and if I juiced up the power, I'm sure that I can go a little bit faster and still stay on the track and still be stable. This VZ chassis car, pretty darn cool. If you take a look at what I did most recently, I added a tail damper on it, and the tail damper is my own unique invention. It actually goes in before it goes out, so you can see that the car catcher material, it's like an L-shaped kind of thing. Because if I just simply had a tail damper coming out of the rear, I would just get a very short tail damper. But because I went in and then out, I get a much longer tail damper, which is what you want when you're doing these kinds of designs like this. So pretty darn cool. So yeah, I would say that VZ or MS suspension chassis, both are great bets, especially when you design your cars the right way. And yeah, have fun racing, everybody. If you like this video, please slam the like button, subscribe to my channel, and you'll see more videos just like this one. Until next time, everybody, see you. Bye.